ہمارے حق میں آوازیں کہاں سے آتی ہیں، کبھی زمین سے کبھی آسمان سے آتی ہیں۔ ہمارے حق میں آوازیں کہاں سے آتی ہیں، کبھی زمین سے کبھی آسمان سے آتی ہیں۔ فقط ہم ہی ہے جہاں میں محبتوں کے سفیر، یہ خوشبوئیں تو ہوا کی اذان سے آتی ہیں۔ فقط ہم ہی ہے جہاں میں محبتوں کے سفیر، یہ خوشبوئیں تو ہوا کی اذان سے آتی ہیں۔ یہ خوشبوئیں تو ہوا کی اذان سے آتی ہیں۔ وہ ہم ہی ہیں جو کریں گے جہان نو تعمیر، گواہیاں یہ ہماری کرم سے آتی ہیں۔ ہمارے حق میں آوازیں کہاں سے آتی ہیں، کبھی زمین سے کبھی آسمان سے آتی ہیں۔ ہم ہی بتائیں گے دنیا کو اے خزاں زادو، بہار آنکھ کے اشک رواں سے آتی ہیں۔ ہم ہی بتائیں گے دنیا کو اے خزاں زادو، بہار آنکھ کے اشک رواں سے آتی ہے۔ بہار آنکھ کے اشک رواں سے آتی ہے۔ براہ پھولوں پھلوں سے چمن خلافت کا، جو برکتیں ہیں مسیح الزمان سے آتی ہیں۔ ہمارے حق میں آوازیں کہاں سے آتی ہیں، کبھی زمین سے کبھی آسمان سے آتی ہیں۔ جو روز ٹوٹتی امت پہ آفتیں سوچو، خدا ہے ان کا تو پھر یہ کہاں سے آتی ہیں۔ جو روز ٹوٹتی امت پہ آفتیں سوچو، خدا ہے ان کا تو پھر یہ کہاں سے آتی ہیں۔ خدا ہے ان کا تو پھر یہ کہاں سے آتی ہیں۔ اندھیرے ہوتے ہیں دل کے دعاؤں سے روشن، شمع
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ۔ پروگرام درخشاں ستارے کے ساتھ ایک دفعہ پھر آپ کی خدمت میں حاضر ہیں۔ آج بھی ہمارے ساتھ
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. We're here today, an evening with the stars, and I'm going to introduce today another guest who I will introduce shortly, and we will begin our program with the recitation of the Holy Quran. And I would like to request Ghalib Khan Sahib to recite a portion from Holy Quran.
بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم یا ایھا الذین آمنوا هل ادلکم علی تجارۃ تنجیکم من عذاب الیم تؤمنون باللہ ورسولہ وتجاہدون فی سبیل اللہ باموالکم وانفسکم أنفسكم ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون يغفر لكم ذنوبكم ويدخلكم جنات تجري من تحتها الأنهار ومساكن طيبة في جنات عدن ذلك الفوز العظيم وأخرى تحبونها نصر من الله وفتح قريب وبشر المؤمنين. The verses recited before you are from Surah Saf, chapter 61, verses 11 to 14. The English translation is as follows. O ye who believe, shall I point out to you a bargain that will save you from a painful punishment? That you believe in Allah and His Messenger, and strive in the cause of Allah with your wealth and your persons. That is better for you, if you did but know. He will forgive you your sins and make you enter the gardens through which streams flow, and pure and pleasant dwellings in gardens of eternity. That is the supreme triumph. And He will bestow another favor which you love, help from Allah and a near victory. So give glad tidings to the believers.
Dear viewers, as you know, at Evening with the Stars, we've been holding events under this banner, and we've been presenting these events where we interview senior members of Jamaat, and we introduce them to you, and we speak to them, and they get to share some events with us. Today we have another senior member of Jamaat, and he doesn't really need an introduction. And without further ado, I would like to start my conversation with Murabbi Sahib, Maulana Mirza Naseer Ahmad Sahib. So the Sahib is just basically saying Assalamu alaikum to Murabbi Sahib. First of all, I'd like to thank you, Murabbi Sahib, for sparing some of your precious time with us. And we are fortunate, and especially for me, that I've got the opportunity to interview you. I thank you very much. I know the program will be lengthy because there are plenty of things that I would like to discuss, especially since you've had the opportunity to spend time in Manchester twice. So especially those members that remember you will have a chance to refresh their memories. So first of all, if you can just introduce yourself, if you can just tell us about where you were born, your initial education, and how Ahmedyat came into the family, if you can just briefly explain. Murabbi Sahib starting with Auzubillah minash shaitanir Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. You've heard my name. My father's name was Hazrat Muhammad Hussain Sahib. I was born in Qadian. When the partition happened, I was 6 years old, and with my parents, we had a difficult time during partition, and we were forced to migrate to Pakistan. So during partition time, we migrated to Pakistan, and a few days before, we stayed in Ratanbagh, where Hazrat Muhammad Mirza along with his family, was present there. We had the opportunity to stay there, after which our father took us to Tirgri, Gujranwala, where we were able to purchase a small house, and we stayed there. We stayed there for 3 to 4 years, and although my education started in Qadian, I carried it on in Tigri in primary school until the 4th class. From 4th class, I started my education in Tigri. I have 2 brothers, Mirza, and with the parents we were 2 brothers, myself and Hazrat Mirza Muzaffar Ahmad. And our parents, with education in mind, took us to Rabwa, and we stayed in Rabwa from then on. So I entered the 4th class, and I got my education in Rabwa until metric, Rabwa Talim Quran High School, in 1958. And there I was able to get further education and work till 1964. This is just a brief introduction of my education and my background. After 1964, I did Waqf and entered Jamia Ahmedyat, Jamia Rabba, and I began my education in 1964, and it lasted until 1971. And that was just a brief summary of my education background. So Sahib's asking, so Mirza, you mentioned about senior members in your family, your grandfather, paternal and maternal side, and also, and some of your family members were Sahaba for Promised Messiah alayhi salam, companions of Promised Messiah alayhi salam. Who would you say who had a bigger role to play in you entering Ahmedyat? In terms of Ahmedyat, Hazrat Maulvi Muhammad Ismail Sahib, my paternal grandfather of Tigri, Gujranwala, he first accepted Ahmedyat. He was the first person. And Munshi Baksh Sahib, who was the brother-in-law of the grandfather, it was his efforts, his tabligh was the result of his grandfather accepting Ahmedyat, Hazrat Muhammad Ismail Sahib, and Hazrat Mujishi Sahib was involved in the tabligh. And my grandfather was a teacher in the Tigri village. So as a result, by the grace of Allah, there were a lot of his students who accepted Ahmedyat. And quite a few of those students became Sahabis, companions of Promised Messiah Islam. So your son-in-laws and were also Sahabi. So there was quite a few members within the family were companions of the Prophet Islam. So there were Sahabis. There were 8 to 9 members of the family that were companions. In terms of my maternal side, my maternal grandfather, Hazrat Maulvi Ghulam Muhammad Sahib, who was again a companion of Hazrat Masih Maulana, Hazrat Sahib Zada Abdul Latif Sahib was linked in he was under his tutelage, and through his tutelage a lot of people joined Ahmedyat. So Abdul Shahzada Abdul Latif Sahib was under him did the maternal grandfather join Ahmedyat. There were many members of the family that were again companions. So my maternal grandfather went to Qadian several times. So my maternal grandfather, he was quite actively involved at that period and was an active companion. My great grandfather, although he didn't perform a bad, he passed away before doing bad, but he was affected by Hazrat Masih Maud, Promised Messiah Islam. Whenever there was an event, especially when there was Philosophy of Islam lecture in Lahore, he was a close follower of Promised Messiah, but he never had the opportunity to go to Qadian for bed. But my grandfather did have the opportunity to do bad under him and was a companion. So Murabbi Sahib, can you tell me about your father, your father, and how, if you can tell us a little bit about him. He was also a companion of Hazrat Masih Maud, Promised Messiah Salam, and he stayed a little while in Qadian as well. And during those days there was an earthquake as well. And at the time when it happened, Hazrat Masih Maud stayed in Bagh, and my father had the opportunity, his father had the opportunity to spend some time with him and to listen to him. And he had the opportunity to stay close to him. And he used to say, at one time, during the night time, one or two thieves attacked and we were able to catch them, and Promised Messiah said, don't beat them up. and there were other incidents where my father used to say that he had the opportunity to serve as a companion. One time, food came and I was eating food. This is Murabbi Sahib's father. During that, Sahibzada Abdul Rais Sahib, who was the father of first caliph, he accidentally picked up the first Khalifa's food and accidentally brought it over, and he presented it to my father. So he was blessed to have spent time with the first caliph as well, a close relationship with him as well. And he had the time to learn under him as well. And he had the opportunity to work closely with him during that period in Qadian. And he prayed behind him. And he was blessed in that way by the grace of Allah. And it was his prayers that we feel that have carried on to us as well. After which, our father, during the First World War, he was enlisted as a soldier, and he served in the army. And even in World War II, he was enrolled into the army. He was in the army, although he wasn't the front lines, but he still was in the army. The platoon that he was in, there were several other people with the similar name, Muhammad Hussain. And what we used to hear from our elders, that often the letters would get mixed up. And so my father added Chitti Masih at the end of his name, so they could distinguish his letters from the other Muhammad Hussains in his platoon, so they could identify the letters. So he became known as Mirza Muhammad Hussain Chitti Masih, Radiyallahu anhu. And there was a letter he wrote, which Murabbi Sahib is showing up. It was in response to non-Ahmadis, in response to Prophet Jesus. So it was a letter of Maulvis in response. So the name is in response to the Maulvis letter regarding Prophet Jesus, in which the Maulvis have written a letter to Prophet Jesus ﷺ that we are waiting for you, and there is there's somebody who has claimed, promised Messiah has claimed that the Messiah has come, and we're in a lot of trouble. This is all in this letter from the non-Ahmadis, and we don't know what to do, and it would be good if you can come down from the sky and present to these Ahmadis they are false, And this Mirza Sahib from Qadian is not giving us any relief. So please could you come down and show to the world that he is not the Messiah. We don't know what to do. We don't have anywhere to turn. So please, for the sake of Allah, please help us against him. So this was a letter that was written, and he read it to Promised Messiah al-Islam, and he was very happy to listen to this letter. And there was a response to this, and Hazur asked him to write a response to this letter, and my father had the opportunity to write a response to this. So Promised Messiah al-Islam, the response to this letter was Promised Messiah's idea, and he very much enjoyed the response, and my grandfather was involved with the response to this. So there are various traditions in Qadian, so I can't go into detail. And the companions of Promised Messiah salam, one of the traditions was Hazrat Maulvi Hussain Sahib. He told me personally that Chitti Masih, and the response to this was during the summer months, and he sat on the rooftop of Masjid Mubarak along with other companions. In presence of all these companions, he read it to Promised Messiah al-Islam. First Caliph was present at that time as well, and it's in the record, and I've read it myself as well. Hazrat Maulvi Hussain Sahib heard it firsthand. My father, he knew this letter. Hazrat Maulvi Muhammadin Sahib, who was Sadr Anjuman at that time, he was a companion in a Sadr Anjuman as well, and he served in many different roles. His martyrdom, he gave witness to the fact that this letter was read at that time, and Hazur was very pleased to listen to it, and Hazur, and on some of the lines Hazur laughed out as well. This Chitti Masih, the letter of Masih, which was for the Prophet Jesus. So the response to this took many days to draft, and then it was finally presented to Hazur for final checking. So this is why my grandfather, Hazrat Maulvi Sahib Chitti Masih, this was so his father, Murabbi Sahib's father, also added this designation to the end of his name. So Mirza Muhammad Hussain Chitti Masih Sahib. It was almost like a trademark within the family. After that, even I felt that this name should continue, and I felt it should remain within the family. And because Promised Messiah al-Islam very much liked this name, so even in my name, Mirza Naseer Ahmad Chitti Masih, I also write that designation at the end of my name. So Murabbi Sahib, my next question is, can you tell us a bit about Chitti Masih, which you've already told us in detail, and you've increased my knowledge on the matter. I just wanted to ask you, I've seen one of your essays in which you've used Chitti Masih, but is this something that you're going to use regularly or every so often? The only reason I write this is to keep the name going, and so we understand the importance of this name Chitti Masih. And because it was read to to Promised Messiah al-Islam, and he enjoyed it very much, that's why I felt that it should continue. The second caliph, as a Muslim mode, he used to also enjoy listening to this letter as well. So this is a blessing of our family, that this name has remained, and through which we also did tabligh to non-Ahmadis. And it was all within this letter to explain to non-Ahmadis that the Prophet Messiah has come, so Imam Ibn Majah in his hadith, he mentions the Mahdi or Isa is not two separate individuals, it's one individual. So this essay, he took many different sources to try to explain to non-Ahmadis that Prophet Jesus, who came, is not going to return, and it's futile to wait for anyone, and even Prophet Jesus said, whoever's come, you should accept him, and nobody else will come. And inshallah, this name should always remain alive. We'll move a bit further on. Although this topic is very interesting and we could continue talking about it, but looking at the time, I want to move it along a bit. If you move on in terms of time, you wrote an essay. You mentioned a few different things in this essay, included some pictures of some elders within the family. If you can tell us a few things about that time. Darush Somalia is the area where we used to live. Darus Sadr is the current name, and towards the hills, Darus Sadr Shamali is close to the hills. Within this block, Masjid Mubarak and Hazrat Muslim Maud and his sons used to have their houses there. And next to the station, which is Darus Sadr South, at that time, it used to be called Swad Malha. After the population increased, when you got off the station towards the main road, towards the schools and house of Chaudhry Zafrullah Khan Sahib, and Mirza Bashir Ahmad Sahib, this road going towards the hills, which is called Sargoda Road, towards the right side there is a girls' college in which there's some legend officers there, and when you pass a junction towards the right side you see Mubarak Mosque, and the other side you see Darus Sadr South. But at the beginning it used to be called Swat Malha, after which it changed to Darus Sadr, and near the station the block near the station was Darus Sadr Alif. When we arrived in Rupa, we didn't have any house, and we used to stay in a house which was being built, Darus Sadr South, and Muhammad Amin Sahib was working in the Anjuman accounts department. It was under construction at that time. There was no road at the time, but near there was a house made near the hills. Mir Ismail Sahib used to stay there. There was another house at that time. Rishi Kamar Hanif Sahib used to live there. It was his accommodation for Ghulam Masroor Sahib, who sold it. And there was another house being built. There was only 3 to 4 houses in that area at that time. And towards the south, Hazrat Nawab Muhammad Ahmad Sahib's house was already built in that area. The rest of it was just dust land. And we stayed a few days in one of the houses for a few days on the rooftop, and we stayed for a little while over there. And Muhammad Hanif Sahib, we used to stay with him in that house. We used to pray together in the open ground, Maghrib Isha, Fajr, and because it was summer days we could do it outside. The room, this is where the mosque started. In the essay that I wrote, so every stage, whichever state the mosque took, Mosque and Masjid Anwar was the name after a while. Initially there was no name. Wherever we could find place to cover our heads, we should just start praying. And we used to pray in the open ground, and it was called Jewelers Land. At the time, the companions of Promised Messiah used to pray here as well, and the land was blessed with them praying in there. And within this block, where the companions used to live, within Darussalam South, Muhammad Sharif Sahib, from Lahore Mia family, he was a elder of that family, and he was a companion. And Sahibzada Mirza Aziz Ahmed Sahib, and within this area he lived there. And Nawab Abdullah Hafiz Begum Sahiba was also had their house built and lived there. Quite a few Chaudhry Anatullah Sahib, who was also a companion, who lived there as well, and Master Aziz Hussain Sahib, he lived there as well, within that area. Dr. Badruddin Sahib, he lived there as well, and his wife, who was also a companion. So there was many names. There were dozens of companions who lived within that area. So it was blessed. So that area was blessed. So this mosque that I'm talking about, it's very slowly. It started moving from east to west. So our friend Dr. Muhammad Zaruf Sahib, so for a time being we even prayed in his house for a little while. Then Ghani Sahib, whose house had been built recently. After he sold it, Major Naseer Ahmad Sahib, who lived there, for a few days we prayed there as well. And if you move ahead, Kareem Sahib, Major Kareem Sahib, we prayed there as well. And there was a plot ahead of his plot was empty, and that's where we prayed for a little while as well. And we used to, in winters, we used to pray indoors in a bedroom, and sometimes outside when the weather was better. In the garden area, we used to pray there as well. Professor Ibrahim Yasir, during winter, when we used to go to his house, there used to be a big bed. He used to move it and lay down the saf or janumas for prayers. He sacrificed for a long period. He used to make room for the people coming for prayers. And then at the time, Jamaat was blessed with a plot. A mosque was finally built. This was the first purpose-built mosque. If not the first, but one of the first. So Qibla was where a proper Qibla was built, towards Qibla. So slowly but slowly there were a few other mosques that were built, but they were mainly made of temporary structures. But this was the first purpose-built mosque, made a permanent mosque. And I wrote about the history of this time, and I mentioned about my elders as well as others who were involved during this period, and also the people who lived in that area as well in this book. This is my childhood. I spent my childhood here. So we stayed here from 1964 to 71. And we stayed in various different places, but the first place we stayed, Qureshi Muhammad Yusuf Sahib, in his house near the road, Baitu Sakhawat was the name. It was named after his father, who was Hafiz Sakhawat Hussain Sahib. He made this house, and Hazrat Khan Sahib Fazal and his son-in-law, in the corner of his house, we were given a small area where we lived. And Qureshi Sahib was has done a lot of favors for us, and the family was very close. Our family and their family was very close, and it was almost as if we were one family. We never noticed any difference. And by the grace of Allah, their family, we spent a lot of time with the family with a lot of love. We owe them a lot for that period. From that period, when we shifted, we moved to Darusaba Gharbi. Darussadar Arbi Alif. Dr. Mirza Sahib, he had made a house over there. Again, we were given an area of the portion of the house for us. And for 13-14 years we stayed there. So 13 to 14 years. So we stayed in that area for 14-15 years. After that period, by the grace of Allah, so within the Tariq quarters, we got a quarter, and that's where we moved in 1980. Jazakallah Murabbi Sahib went on mute briefly. One thing I'd like to mention to the viewers, I'm getting phone calls and messages. I'm afraid I can't pick up your phone or answer your messages. It would be better if you could send your messages in YouTube, so then we can try to address them during the program. Jazakallah. So Murabbi Sahib will move a bit further on. In one of your books that you wrote about your teacher, Mir Muhammad Ahmad Sahib, Daud Ahmad Sahib, two things that I noticed for myself, I'd just like to ask you about, if you could explain briefly. One time, he mentioned, when you've been given a mission, within the time frame, you either complete the mission within that time frame, or your body should be found there. Could you tell us a little bit about that, Murabbi Sahib? What the background was to this point, and if you can explain. So this was told to us by our seniors during Jamia. After we finished Jamia, Hazrat Daud Ahmad Sahib, I used to talk about him a lot. He told us this point, and I heard this before getting admission into Jamia. And then when we got admission into Jamia, we found him just to be like that. So once somebody had committed to something, he didn't like to hear any excuses why something couldn't be done. And his personality was a role model for us. Regardless of what the circumstances were, he would never give up. So we talk about his life. So we don't find the word, we don't find any loss or losing in his lifetime. So when his students used to study under him, they used to feel working under him, they used to feel that there was no task that was too difficult. Mirza Marhum, may Allah elevate his status, he during there was a sports session in Jamia, which a sports activity, walking. There was some walking challenge, and it was quite a difficult walking challenge. It was 120 miles journey. You had to walk 120 miles. And you could only take a little bit of food along with you. It was a half a kilo. Half a kilo of food you could take with you for this 120-mile journey by feet. You could take whatever you liked, but it couldn't exceed half a kilo. And during this journey, you could only eat a little bit at a time, obviously. And you were given 5 rupees maximum for emergency. And if there was a threat to life, you could spend a little portion of that 5 rupees to eat something, to buy something. If you spent the money and it got you through the journey, that would count towards completing it, but the person who spent the least amount of money would be given a higher place. And a small quantity out of that 5 rupees you were allowed to spend, but no more. If you spent more than that, then you would be deducted points in the final standing. And you can't stay during this journey. You can't stay at your friends or your relatives' houses. Nowhere could you stay, even within Jamaat, or you could get fed or rest. This challenge, you couldn't ask anything during this challenge. All you had to do was walk and continue walking, and you could run if you wanted to. It wasn't against the rules. You could run if you wanted to. It was 125 miles. You couldn't run for 125 miles. Even walking was quite a difficult task. I remember somebody gave me advice. The shoes that you wear those shoes because you'll be used to them. Don't wear anything other than that. So I wore my own shoes that I wear on a daily basis. But they started chafing, causing blisters on my feet. The sole of my foot was all turned into a big blister. And then my blisters burst and my foot was just turned into a big mess. But we still kept on walking. It was all the same, not just me. Everybody was the same. This journey, this was a very difficult journey. And there was quite a few jokes that were made up following this. And some of the students enjoyed it as well. The reason for this journey, that even if you have to go through the most difficult periods, that you don't give up. Regardless of what's happening, that you don't give up. That was the aim of this test. So at the end of my journey, when I got there, from Raipur to Rabwa, so from the other side, I could see the other students and Mirza, and he came to I met him. He asked me how I was, and I said, you can see how I am. So if you think about it from a philosophical side of things, so this was a tough training for us, but it was to prepare us for what was to come and not to give up. And by the grace of Allah, I was able to complete this. And when we used to hike in the hills, we used to do 100 to 120 miles in that, but that was more relaxed. We didn't have any restrictions. 26-mile race, we used to take part in that as well. There were lots of long endurance based training in sports. Every day for sports we had to come. We couldn't drop out, and our attendance was monitored, and we had to attend these training sessions with him. It was all to train us up, to put us through a lot of stress and pressure, so we could be ready for anything that life would throw at us. So one thing I'd like to mention that I just remembered, one time I during my first posting, which was in Africa, in Ghana, in missionary training college from 1972 to 79. I was there for 6 to 7 years. My first batch of students, there was for 3 years, one batch, and then after 3 years you get a new batch. One time, the mosque used to be close to the missionary training college. So one time the whole class was late for namaz. So I said, you'll have to walk from here. And this is the type of training I'd received in Rabwa, but these kids had never seen anything like that. They weren't used to anything like that. When I told them, so I told them we're going to go to this market, which was 5 miles away. We're going to walk there. And to me, it didn't seem like a big thing. I asked them to go walk there and come back. When we were going for the walk, the headmaster, there was a headmaster who was based in a school, Naseer Sahib, who was headmaster for that school. We went there. Naseer Sahib, he was coming by car while we were walking, so he parked the car and he came to ask us what's going on. So we were told to go there, and we've been told to walk. And then Chaudhry Sahib came to speak to me and said, "Well, why did you ask them to walk?" He says, "This is to build them up. It's to make them strong." We did the same thing. We went through the same processes. When the next day, when the kids came back, the kids were angry. This was very tough for us. 10 miles journey. That was a lot for us. So when I explained to them what I had been through, what the 120-mile trips and 26-mile runs and hikes, their jaws dropped. Our first missionaries that came into Africa faced all these difficulties, and even in these difficult conditions, they carried on with their mission. And they were blessed to carry on, and they were able to form big jamaats simply because they offered sacrifices, and they were nowhere near the level of sacrifice that they offered. But for the future generations, until they don't get this sort of training, they won't be able to appreciate this. And this was Mirzab's point of view. Those people who are going to face the world, and we don't know what sort of situations they'll face until they don't don't go through these difficulties, these situations where you don't give up, you don't concede defeat, you don't accept defeat, you don't even think about it. And in order to control the situation, that you should always do your best. So regardless of the situation, you should always be ready. Sahib used to say, whenever we were given a task, he didn't like to hear any excuses. He didn't want to know that the task wasn't complete. And he told us the same thing, that regardless of the situation, you should come through the other side. We knew that these are the type of situations that we would be exposed to in real life. And Jazakallah, Murabbi Sahib, I realize the time is going so fast. There's a lot of things to discuss. And Murabbi Sahib saying, don't worry about time, I'm here. But if look at your time, you should consider that, but don't worry about me. But we said up saying that I don't want to keep you for too long. So I just asked him if we got any refreshments with you. He just Murabbi Sahib just asked him, does my sound hoarse? Do I need water? No. So Murabbi Sahib, I would like to show you a few pictures and the viewers, if you can just tell us, especially for example this picture, who this little boy is. I don't know who this boy is. Behind me, Sahib, is the other teacher, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Bali Sahib. I don't know where I got this tasweer, but I got it from somewhere. This is a picture from before I was admitted into Jamia. So I don't know who this child is in front of me, Sahib. So I'm saying, I assumed that maybe the young child was you. So there's another picture I would like to show. This was during your trip to Ghana, or before the trip to Ghana. So in 1972, we went to Ghana. We left in 1972. The right side of Hazrat Mir Sahib is another missionary, Mir Abdul Sharif Sahib Tabassum. He was a missionary in Sierra Leone. No, sorry. There was a missionary in Sierra Leone called Nizamuddin Mehman. It was his nephew. And me and him, we left together, and Mir Sahib came to the railway station to see us off. This was our last picture, and this was the last picture. And then the next year, Mir Sahib passed away the following year, 1973. And this was my last meeting with him. This is the next picture, Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Salis. This picture I got from Hazrat Mir Sahib's son, Mir Sulaiman Ahmad. If you can send me a picture of a Hazur. And this picture, this was during Jalsa Salana, when Hazur, when he came for inspection, when he used to come for inspection, during that period, this picture was taken. Behind Hazur directly is Mir Sahib, and the right hand side holding the mud pot, Mirza Mahmud Ahmad Naseer's young brother. Hazrat Mir Muhammad Ishaq Sahib's son is the one holding the wooden pot, the clay pot. During Jalsa Salana inspection, during in Langar, he was doing an inspection, or it could be possible there was another event where Mirza had probably arranged. During the first time when Khalifatul Masih Salis traveled in 1967, he traveled to Europe. The Anjuman at the time, the Jamaat had organized a big dinner where 3,000 members had attended that event. 3,000 people at the time was a big task. And Hazrat Mirza organized that dinner, and when Hazur in 1970, when Hazur went to Africa, on his return, the Anjuman again held a dinner. Mirza was a genius in arranging these administrative work. And when Hazur came back from Africa, there was 4,000 people present, and there was some special kind of cutlery used, and it was in Jamia Ahmedyat ground. So these two dinners, when he went to Africa and Europe on the return of Hazur, these dinners were arranged, and these were extraordinary events at the time. Looking at the doors behind Hazur, I can tell that this was during Jalsa Salana, and this is during an inspection that Hazur is just checking everything, and these hot chapatis, they look like they seem quite hot, and Hazur's handled them carefully. But this seems like inspection during Jalsa Salana. Murabbi Sahib, at this time, I would like to mention on the YouTube channel, a lot of people have sent their salam to you, and a lot of people are wishing your long healthy life and praying for your long healthy life. And Murabbi Sahib saying Ameen, and he's also praying for all the viewers. One friend has made a comment. Murabbi Sahib, your voice is very pleasing to our ears. Jazakallah. The viewers are enjoying this very much. Murabbi Sahib, I'm going to read out a sentence, if you can tell us about it. And if you can make it brief, we've got many other things to discuss as well, Murabbi Sahib. Mirza Naseer Ahmed and Chambeli Ka Phool. If you can tell us about these two statements. Mirza Naseer Ahmed and Chambeli Ka Phool. It's from the same essay. Hazrat Mirza, he came into a class. Mirza used to teach us Bukhari, the Hadith, book of Hadith. We used to tease Mirza every so often. One time, we didn't feel like studying on that day, so we all decided we won't speak. So the system was, whenever a teacher used to come to the class, there used to be a register as well. There used to be attendance, and it used to be called out and it used to affect our final grades as well. So when he started the attendance, when Mirza started taking names, nobody said anything. Everybody was quiet, and when he raised his eyes, he looked everywhere. He said, "Your intentions don't look good today. What's the matter?" We said. We all said that we don't feel like studying today. He closed the hadith, book of hadith, and we all went out. We went out. We went for tea. We had a frank relationship with Mir Sahib, and he still used to manage to teach us even when we weren't behaving. And one day I was thinking that you should all if you were giving a flower, which one would you like? Which one would be associated with your name? And he started and with each student's name there was a flower named after them. This is in 1969-1970, as Mir Sahib said one time. He named us after flowers. It had happened once before, but I couldn't remember what happened before, but it happened again. Mukarram Iqbal Ahmed Najm Sahib, who used to be our class fellow. Malik Muhammad Akram Sahib, he used to be my class fellow as well. There were 16 class fellows, 16 members. And currently I'm teaching in Jamia UK, and Iqbal Najm Sahib used to be part of that team. When we discussed this, event, Iqbal Sahib said, I still have those names saved. So I got it off him, and I wrote it in the book. And Mir Sahib had put Chambeli, it's a type of flower, after my name. And because of Iqbal Sahib, I was able to get that, and that was the background to this. Jazakallah Murabbi Sahib. The picture that we showed you. The picture we showed you of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Salis, Rahimullah, where he was holding a chapati. In this picture, he sent a message regarding this picture. This is in 1970. In Jamia, the 1970s dinner was in Jamia's ground, and this is during that period. I will move forward, Murabbi Sahib. In Ghana, we'll discuss Ghana a little bit. When you were in Ghana, you stayed there for a few years. You were a Jamia principal over there as well. I'm just going to show you a few pictures of that time. This was the mosque. The first Sal Pond was the first markaz in Ghana, near the sea. They used to trap the sea ocean and extract salt from there. So that's why the area was called Salt Pond. Achimfo was the old name, but the English renamed it as Salt Pond because salt was extracted from that area. So the first Mubalig in that area, Muhammad Karim Sahib, so Mulana Nayyar Sahib also started his tabligh in Ghana from here. Yusuf Hazrat Maulana Nayyar Sahib started his tabligh in Ghana from this markaz, the Salpon, and for a very long period this is where the tabligh was initiated from. In 1950s this was first built. Maulana Nadeem Ahmed Sahib Mubashir was the first missionary in that time, Amir and missionary, and he was the one who was involved in the making of this mosque. You can't see the dome in this picture. It had collapsed at a later date, but this picture was this mosque was so beautiful that people used to come and take pictures and make videos here. Maulana Kaleem Sahib once told me an incident, and he told me at one point, towards the right side of this mosque you can see an empty ground. This is where the inauguration of the mosque took place. There were some temporary structures put up where people were invited and the inauguration happened of this mosque. The prime minister of Ghana at the time came. He was invited. Mr. Akuma Sahib, he was Sadr for Ghana for a while, and there was either a Palestinian or somebody from Egypt, somebody from Middle East was invited for the inauguration as well. I can't remember exactly. The Prime Minister and the chief guest from Middle East, he was going to inaugurate the mosque. The boy who was holding the silver plate with the scissors on, which was used to cut the ribbon for inauguration, they were hoping the Prime Minister at the time was presented a plate, and it was going towards Maulana Mubashir Sahib quickly picked up the scissors and gave it to the Middle Eastern Muslim to ask him to cut the ribbon. He couldn't stand that a Christian would inaugurate the mosque, even though the Middle Eastern invitee was a non-Ahmadi, but still he wanted a Muslim to inaugurate the mosque. This mosque is quite old, it's 55 years plus. This mosque is still is a beautiful mosque, and tourists often take pictures when they pass this by and get the pictures taken here. Towards the left side, in a few steps away, there was a mission house as well, not too far off. And within that compound, there used to be a missionary training college, but now it's moved to Progo, and that's where the secondary school is, Progo, along with the missionary college. Bashir Mahdi Sahib. He was the one who initiated the college. And towards the sea. And the new Jamia was finally built near the sea. And it was an international Jamia which has been built there. And lots of students from across the world come there to study. And they're learning Urdu of a high quality, of a high standard over there. And students from across Africa come there. Jazakallah Murabbi Sahib. A lot of viewers are watching and enjoying our conversation. They're sending their prayers and even asking questions. Have been requested. You can't do justice to all of the things, and a lot of these conversations are very interesting, and it's very important for us to listen. If we don't rush things, rather than keeping it to one program, we can split it into multiple programs. With your permission, Murabbi Sahib, would you allow us to hold multiple programs and continue the conversation so we don't rush things? And Murabbi Sahib saying that you're the host, whichever way you feel is convenient, I'll be available. I'm looking at the time as well. So the Sahib saying I'm looking at the time, it's 9:30, so I don't want to keep going for too much longer. And in terms of the questions I had planned, I've not even covered half of them. But for the time being, we'll continue this conversation for a little while. But I thought I'd get your permission for a second part as well. I've received quite a few questions, and I welcome others to do the same if you'd like to ask anything. And we haven't even covered, Murabbi Sahib saying we haven't even covered Northwest yet. Murabbi Sahib, I'm just going to show you another picture of the time in Ghana. I can see that you're standing there near Ahmedyat Hospital. If you can tell us a few things about this. This is during this is a hospital in Agona Swedro. This is during the inauguration of the hospital. This has a long history as well. I'll explain briefly. In another place away from this area, it was a private house where the doctors started a hospital. It was in a private house, and by the grace of Allah, with a lot of success, Dr. Ahmad Sahib initiated that program. He was the medical officer, medical in charge, who started the husband-wife who started this initiative, and they had the opportunity of serving a lot of people. And the blessing of this hospital was from people from far and wide used to come to this hospital. There were many clinics and other medical institutions, whether government or private. People used to come to this one, and they used to come and get treated here, and they were blessed with recovery here. In the old building, which was a private house, we used to get a lot of complaints. Even though there were government hospitals and other hospitals around, And there were some complaints that we didn't have a surgery table which had the ability to move a patient into different positions for a surgery. We didn't have that. And the people used to complain, not because of the treatment that was being administrated there, but because they didn't have a proper surgical table. And people in their mind thought that the surgical table was part of the treatment, where it would move left, right, up and down. But little did they realize that it wasn't anything to do with the table. It was more to do with the clinician. So when the new government came, the government, when all the complaints were relayed to the government, they didn't take any heed. So the government sent some personnel to come and have a look at to inspect the surgery. Dr. Aftab Sahib at the time showed all the premises and showed what they did. And at that time we went, I can't remember whether the table had arrived or not, the surgical table. At the time they'd written to Hazur. Hazur had specially sent, or was on the way, the table that was required. And there were Commissioner Sahib, I can't remember his name right now. He was talking in the just outside, and a patient had come, an aged patient. He didn't know the difference between. He didn't know that the army officer that was there, the rank, and he came to the doctor. He came to the doctor and said, "Can you please give me medicine?" And in front of the major, he said, "I can't give you medicine right now. We're under inspection." The Commissioner Sahib, Commissioner for Health, he was interested. He said, "Who is this guy who came in with such a forceful manner and asked for medicine?" The commissioner asked the old man, "Where have you come from?" He said, Sunyani. He came from Sunyani. If you imagine, if you're coming from Manchester to London, and that was a difference. So Swedro to Sunyani, there was a long distance. The commissioner at the time, he was startled. He said, "Why have you've come from that far? And there were that many hospitals in the way. What happened to them?" He said they were all there. All the hospitals were there. Then the commissioner asked, "Why have you come here then?" And he said, "I've come here for treatment and for shifa in the end, for complete recovery." There was silence. It was complete silence. The commissioner went quiet. And by the grace of Allah, based on Huzur's prayers and the blessings of Allah, many miracles happened there. Another incident I would like to just mention. I hope you're not getting tired. Dr. Aftab Sahib, his tenure finished, and Major Laik Ahmed Farooq Sahib, he arrived, carried on, and he is currently based in Canada. He told me this incident. One time, a patient came who had a severe kind of hernia, and I tried to operate on this patient. I wasn't able to relieve his pain, and I came to an understanding that he won't be able to survive, and I left him in the emergency theatre, and I went upstairs, and that's where Dr. Sahib used to live. And during that time, I at that time, I wrote a letter and then to Hazur and prayed, and I asked the servant to go and post the letter straight away. And by the time I came down, I didn't hear the patient's voice, and I assumed that he had maybe passed away. And when I went to the operation theatre, he was sitting up and he was laughing. He was smiling. And by the grace of Allah, after the letter to Hazur, the fact that I just wrote the letter to Hazur was enough for the patient to become better. Without any medicine, without any intervention, he became better just because I wrote a letter to Hazur. By the grace of Allah, even though it would have taken 10 days for it to arrive, but still, Allah accept the blessings. And then after a while, the government allowed us to build a proper hospital, which is in this picture. And we were allowed to build a hospital. And a missionary from Accra, Ghana, he said that I was sent by Dr. Aftab Sahib. He sent me that a building has been identified, if I could go and see it. Maulvi Sahib said, okay, let's go and see it. The building that they were talking about, which was built by Kami Kurma Sahib, who was the Prime Minister, his Minister of Health, during his tenure as a health minister, built this building, and after retirement I would come and serve the people after my retirement. And it was built with that in mind. The Minister of Health had made this hospital with a view of having all the facilities, state-of-the-art facilities in there. And this building was brand new and hadn't been used at all. It was brand new, but just needed a bit of work. And when Maulvi Sahib went to see it, and we were able to purchase it, and Hazur had agreed, it was 32,000 the cost, 8,000 was a renovation, and alhamdulillah, the building was in a good shape to serve the people. And when the Commissioner of Health came and inaugurated it, even though it was a building that he had built for that purpose, and he became quite emotional by the fact that Jamaat had come to serve the local community. And the Commissioner was so happy to see the hospital. And this is during the inauguration, and we were standing close together, and somebody had taken a picture on my right. In the center, it's me. On my right side is Yusuf Yalsan Sahib, Naib Amir. And next to him was Chaudhry Sharif Sahib, Agona Swedro, Agoma Popsin. It was a secondary school over there, and he was a headmaster over there. Towards my left side, Masood Jawad Johnson Sahib, who was the General Secretary for Jamaat. Mir Ahmed Tabassum, he went to Ghana with me. And after him was Chaudhry Naseer Ahmed towards the right side. He was the headmaster of the secondary school. He was the first headmaster. This was you wanted to know about the history of this picture, so I've explained it. Murabbi, do you remember exactly what was being discussed in this picture? When this picture was taken, what were you discussing? Because it looks like there was something serious being discussed in this picture. I can't recall what was being discussed. I don't even remember who or when this picture was taken. I think this was after the inauguration, by the looks of it, or perhaps before. It's difficult to tell. A few moments earlier, the chief of the area actually came and worked like workers to help get the hospital ready. Those same paramount chiefs who were helping us set up the hospital and the stage got their clothing ready, the chief clothing, traditional clothing, and came back. So we were laughing as well, that we were wondering that these same people were helping us all out to get the hospital ready, and now they've dressed up as their official attire and they came to the ceremony. Mirza Abdul Sami Sahib was who was the son of Mirza Masood Ahmad. So there's a few of so this I was just reading a few messages. So I was just reading a few messages. Hamid Kareem Sahib, who sent a message saying, Murabbi Sahib, what's the secret to your good health? So Murabbi Sahib is just laughing, saying, I don't know what fitness he's looking at. So Hamid Sahib, when we used to go for tabligh with Ghulam Bari Sahib from Rabwa, and we came to when we went for tablighi mission, we came to Hamid Sahib's house, the person who asked the question, and we stayed in his house. And that's how I know them well. So when we go from Rabwa to Lalpur, this is we used to stay at his house, and those old memories have been refreshed. And his father was he used to have a clinic, his father, and he had a lot of shifa in his hand, and he was a very pious man. And after a while they moved to Faisalabad, and where he moved, they called it Kareem Nagar, the area that he used to live, after his name, because his name was Malik Kareem. It was named after him. It was his nephew, or his son-in-law is Sabat Kareem Sahib, who is currently a missionary in Northeast. And this is this family has a long connection with the Jamaat and a lot of service. So Mirza would like to mention this picture, which is of Chaudhry Sahib. I'm just coming to this picture now, Mirza. I would like to mention a few messages to you. And then after which we will end this program. Salman Akhtar from USA mentions it's 4:26 in US, and we're here and we're ready to continue listening to Murabbi for several hours more. As our regional Mirza Sajid has written, I'm thankful to Murabbi. I would like to say Jazakallah Azza on behalf of myself and all members of the Northwest. Northwest region, to respect Murabbi Sahib for his precious time given to us today. I'm also grateful to my IT team for arranging today's very interesting session. Murabbi Sahib saying Jazakallah. Murabbi Sahib, finally, in this episode of the program, I would like to show you a picture. This picture. If you can tell us about this picture, and then we will come to the conclusion of this program. And then the next episode, we will discuss Sri Lanka and Manchester in the next episode. If you can just talk us through this picture. This is Hazrat Chaudhry Muhammad Zafrullah Khan Sahib in July 1970s. I can't remember exactly if it was July or August. In Accra, he landed in Accra. We took Chaudhry Sahib to Kumasi. But before that, Asopore, there's a hospital, a Jamaat hospital and a secondary school. And Dr. Hafiz Ghulam Mustafa Sahib had written a letter to Chaudhry Sahib beforehand that if you come here, then please come meet me. So when Chaudhry Sahib arrived in Accra, we were going to the mission house. He asked for the program, and Maulvi Karim Sahib is on the right side. He was a Amir and missionary in charge of Ghana. Discussed the program with him. Maulana Karim Sahib said that looking at your health, we've decided to go by air. Chaudhry Sahib asked, is there any other Jamaat in the middle? And he mentioned, yes, in Asapore we've got a mission house and a hospital and a secondary school there. Chaudhry Sahib said, then we'll go by car and we'll stop there on the way. And so we went to Asakore. He looked at the hospital. It was quite an old building. There was a mosque there as well. And we looked at the mosque and the school from outside. And we stayed there. We stayed the night there. And Ahmedyat Secondary School Kumasi spoke there as well. He gave an address there. And then the next day we went to Salt Pond. And in Salt Pond, there was a missionary college over there. We asked Chaudhry Zafrullah Khan Sahib, we'd take a picture with the students there. So Chaudhry Sahib accepted that. And after food, when we were about to leave towards the Jalsagah, where everybody had gathered for the Jalsa address outside the mission house, this was a picture with the students. Behind Maulana Karim Sahib on my second from left, Maulana Abdul Ghaffar Sahib. He's in Birmingham. He's missionary in Birmingham currently. He studied there for 3 years, and then he moved to Rabwah for a few years. After his Shahid degree, he served in Ghana, and then he moved to London in Batafatu, and now he's currently in Birmingham. Two have gone to Sierra Leone from this picture, and some in Nigeria, and the rest in Ghana. And this is a proud moment for us that we were able to spend time with him and get a picture with him. Zakram Absab, thank you very much. And believe me, the message that we're receiving in YouTube, people are full of enjoyment listening to the incidents, and I feel like after this transmission I'll call you in to listen to the stories, and although there's many things yet to be discussed, we'll have to come to the conclusion of this program. But it's inshallah we'll continue our conversation in the second episode. We're looking at your schedule. We're getting a lot of messages still of salam. Murabbi saying wa alaikum assalam. So viewers, we were hoping to discuss everything in one program with Murabbi Sahib, Mirza Naseer Ahmed Sahib, Chitti Masih, to listen to him. But unfortunately, we don't have enough time to cover everything within one episode. So looking at the time restrictions, we are going to carry this forward into a second episode, and it will be announced in a few days. And we will continue our conversation. I would like to apologize to those people who are from Manchester Northwest, who are looking to refresh their memories with Murabbi Sahib. But inshallah, in the next program we will continue and we will refresh our memories with Murabbi Sahib. And I would like to request Murabbi Sahib for leave. Jazakallah Murabbi Sahib for your time. Thank you for your time, and I know you're extremely busy, but regardless, you took time out. May Allah bless you immensely. May Allah grant you long health, and may we continue to benefit from your experiences. And to conclude this session, if you could lead us into silent prayer.
आमीन जज़ाकुमुल्लाह खैरन
आमीन।
सब आपका बहुत शुक्रिया आपका
अस्सलाम वालेकुम रहमतुल्लाह।
Thank you very much, all the viewers. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah.
नग़मात गाएंगे हम अख़ुवत की محبت کے نغمات گائیں گے ہم، اخوت کی تانے اڑائیں گے ہم، کدورت کی ہو تلخی آجی سے دور، وہ میٹھے ترانے سنائیں گے ہم، وہ میٹھے ترانے سنائیں گے ہم، وہ میٹھے ترانے سنائیں گے ہم، محبت کے نغمات گائیں گے ہم، اخوت کی تانے اڑائیں گے ہم، دلائل سے کثرت کو دیں گے شکست، کہ وحدت کا پرچم اڑائیں گے ہم، کہ وحدت کا پرچم اڑائیں گے ہم، کہ وحدت کا پرچم اڑائیں گے ہم، محبت کے نغمات گائیں